to like jump right into something that came up rather than take it slow. Would that be
Go.
okay?
Let's go. Let's race.
Yesterday, I spoke with Benjamin Irons, and Benjamin Irons shared with me um, a little bit of reluctance to use voice as a part of his sound healing practices because he is not a professional in any way and perhaps perceives himself to not be able to vocalize within any preferred pitch range that he decides on. Put more simply, he's just not confident that his voice matches his ability to facilitate with instruments. And so I wondered if maybe you could touch on that because kirtan is a chanting practice, and I know that you utilize a lot of vocals in everything that you do. And in fact, this was much of your life's work. And then after that, maybe we can just touch on something that I saw so much in the first version of Sound School, which is um, shyness or reluctance to put yourself out there and share these wonderful gifts and practices that you've learned. So maybe you could just touch on that. It really came up for me.
I can. Yeah, and I totally respect where Ben is coming from. I am by nature an introvert. So, especially out in all the way up through high school, if I had to get up and do a book report or do a science project presentation in high school, I would be shaken in my shoes. But then going into college and making the decision to become a music major, especially a voice major,
Yeah.
well, you have to get up in front of an audience and do your juries to get your grades. You have to do your recitals to earn your degrees. And you learn over time that when you get up in front of people to present music, whether it's going to be singing or chanting or whatever, that the audience is not going to come at you with tomatoes and blunt instruments. You're going to be okay. So, most of the problem that people have when they think, I can't do this or I don't believe in my abilities, the problem is actually that our ego is getting in the way and telling us that we're not good enough.
Mm.
My own One of my yogi mentors is Yogi Michael Matab. He's down in Arkansas now. And he said the first thing you do when you start a sound healing with a gong or a sound bath is leave your ego outside the door. Your ego wants you to do badly. And it's just one of the weird things about the human mind. So when we set that aside, we realize that what we have to give is pure good intention and nothing else. But if the ego is involved, it dirties the waters. So, what I would say to Ben or anyone else is start simply by sitting with your lips closed but your teeth open as if you're holding a golf ball or a plum in your mouth
Mm.
and just hum because when you do what I call the open tooth hum,
Mm.
the resonance fills your entire skull, all of your sinuses up above the eye, below the eye, and then right behind the teeth. There's a lot of holes in your head that are used as resonating cavities. Start filling them with the vibration with that open teeth, closed lip hum, and get comfortable with the sound that you make. And this is a technique that's part of what's called toning. I have here on my many books a book called Toning by Laurel Elizabeth Keyes or Keyes. And this is one of the books that I recommended in my videos for Sound School
Yeah.
because it's a good way for someone who's not used to using the voice in sound healing kirtan to get used to doing so. And also, if you want to go a little further into the psychology behind toning, then you could look at James D'Angelo's book, The Healing Power of the Human Voice.
Mm.
Also, and all of these are tabbed because I've done a lot of study and marking in them. Um, I use the voice very sparingly in a sound bath, but what I do very often is I'll very, very softly chant something like Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhuvantu, which means may all beings everywhere be happy and free.
Mm.
Or I'll chant Sohum. Sohum is the Sanskrit sound for the inhale of the breath and the exhale of the breath, but it also means I am that I am.
Mm.
Sohum, sohum. And it can be easily done with a single singing bowl. Sohum, sohum. Dwelling on the M at the end of sohum. If you're not in it as a performer's mindset, then you're just
Mhm.
going to gently hum it as if you're trying to lull an infant to sleep. And when you do
Yeah.
that, it has the same effect on adult or teen participants in your sound bath, it begins to relax them because pretty much almost everybody has some memory in their latent mind of being sung a lullaby when they're very tiny and try to get, their parents trying to get them to sleep. It's one of the
Yeah.
most comforting sounds you can hear, and we actually hear it before we are born because in the mother's womb, as the mother may sing or chant a lullaby to her unborn child, the vibrations are what we hear in the womb because hearing is the first sense that's fully developed before birth. And it's also, think I mentioned this last time we had an interview, Frank. It's also the last of our five senses to
Yeah.
continue to operate as we are leaving this existence, as we are on our deathbeds.
Yeah, that always gives me chills. I remember
Yeah.
that from when we spoke about that. And again, not to keep referencing Ben Irons, but Ben Irons facilitates end of life transition using sound bowls and has spoken about that. Before we go on to other things, I want to dig into this a little bit because it's not necessary that anyone listening to this need to become a certified sound practitioner to benefit from humming or chanting to themselves. Maybe you can share with us what are like the physiological benefits if I am going to decide that every morning I'm going to go on a 15-minute walk outside and I'm going to hum, or that I decide that I'm going to chant to myself for 15 minutes. What can I expect my experience might be like?
There are so many that it would probably take a full hour on its own, but right up front, the biggest benefit you'll have is an elevated mindset. You won't be so edgy because the vibrations that go through your skull and eventually through your whole body, especially the chest cavity from humming or just chanting a little as you walk, will help to lower your blood pressure and lower your heart rate. So that means it'll lower your stress levels. It's the stress that tends to cause a lot of cardiac issues and a lot of stress related diseases in our 21st century lives. So the best thing we can do is lower our stress levels by humming or singing. It's said that if you sing for 10 minutes a day, even if it's just you with a ukulele or a piano or a guitar all by yourself, you will actually prolong your life because you are lowering stress levels. And the heart will be so appreciative. Believe me, I know. Some people have even been able to lower their dosages of high blood pressure medicines and in some cases eliminate them altogether. Of course, this is something you'd never do without a doctor's guidance, but this is just one way to help yourself. If you're less edgy, you're also not going to be quite so snappy with family members or your coworkers or your neighbors. And so you'll just be all around a more pleasant person. And especially if you want to become a sound healer, it's good for you to establish a reputation of being a person who is approachable. If you're kind of brittle
Mm.
and edgy, you won't have that much success because people are able to read vibes of
Yep.
someone that they're going to. You've probably all gone to a doctor or a counselor and you've just gotten kind of a funny vibe about them. Trust those vibes.
I love that. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about your experience as a teacher in sound school. And specifically, I think something that's really interesting for me to understand, Dr. Sandra, what was it like for you to watch 100 people go through this 9-week learning process? And specifically, I'm really curious about, did you go into it believing one thing about what was possible and then come out of it believing something differently? Or did you see people undergo any sort of education that was surprising to you? But I'm being very direct, but really I'm just curious, what was it like for you to watch 100 students go through this program, and anything you might want to share about that?
Um, in the warm weather, I live up here in the Northeast, so of course we have long winters, but in the warm weather, I'm a gardener, and I always start my seeds in March or April
Uh,
so that they're ready to plant once I hit late May.
yeah.
So to me, watching those 100 people go through the sound school back in the fall was planting seeds. For instance, a lotus blossom. A lotus seed you have to actually nick and break open before you soak it in water, otherwise it won't be able to grow. And under Jonathan's leadership, and then with the rest of us chipping in, I saw those seeds begin to crack open and start growing. Now, did I know which direction they were going to grow in? No. Not all seeds grow up tall and straight and perfect. Some seeds grow with funny little bends and quirks. but that makes the garden more interesting.
Mm.
Neither do I want to see a garden of all the same colors. Every color is different. And so I saw a bouquet at the end of sound school. Some people dove into it, finished it all pretty quickly. Some are still working their way through it. But
Yeah.
that's okay because sometimes the longer that a plant takes to grow, the stronger and more resilient it will be to
Mm.
withstand opposition or hard times or, bad weather, as we say.
Yeah.
So I've been able to see these people find new aspects of their own selves and then take that and pay it forward. They put another link in that golden chain and they keep making the chain longer by being sound healers and showing others what they've learned and how they can benefit from it. This week, in 3 days, I'm going to be going to the home of a fellow teacher of mine at the music school. She has pancreatic cancer and has been battling it for months and months and months, and it's not looking good right now. So I'm going to give her her own personal sound bath. No, no charge. This is just a gift. She said, I've got my son home from college. He's a percussionist. He's very skeptical about the whole sound bath thing, but he's going to be here because he wants to see what it'll do for me. I don't know what I might encounter there as far as emotion or what vibes I might get from the sun, but I'm hoping that I can be of comfort to her and then maybe help crack the seed open a little bit for the sun because as a percussionist, he would be prime to take advantage of this and help others, especially in his own age group.
Yeah, most definitely. My goodness, do we find unexpectedly, I've encountered so many um, recovering professional musicians, people who have come to, most notably Jonathan, came to his work with singing bowls specifically because coming out of such a structured classical training, um, grew a need in him for something a little bit more formless and patternless that he has then since melded together. But yeah, wow, that's a lot.
It's true. And I went through most of my career with the same background in that here's the score. You learn the score, you perform the score, you present it
Yeah.
exactly with no variations because then the composer's intentions won't be brought out. But especially as a singer, you have to bring something personal to it because it's your voice that's cutting the pattern out, so to speak. I can give you a pattern to make a suit, but it's going to be your hands that'll cut the fabric and your stitching that will make the suit. So that fingerprint's going to be there.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm. You are having like a personal change in your life,
Yes,
right? Like after 25 years of the of being on the voice faculty, maybe you would just want to share with people
I sure do.
because right, you're this is like a major transition, 25 years. What's this like for you, and what's it like to close a chapter, and what do you feel is opening for you?
Well, I guess first of all, I should make a monster confession. This coming June, I'll be turning 66. No, please do not send me birthday candles to put on my cake. But I would say since easily about 2018, 2019, which is about when you and I first met.
Yeah,
That's when I really dove deep into yoga and began to go into it professionally as a teacher and gain
yeah,
advanced training. At that time, that was when I began to discover the healing power of singing bowls.
yeah,
And that's when you and I met because I
yeah.
started buying singing bowls by apparently the pound from you. And then and started getting into kirtan through the
Yeah,
Kirtan Leader Institute based in Colorado, and then began to offer kirtan sessions both live and online and
yeah.
teach people how to lead that. That led to getting a harmonium and a tanpura from Old Delhi music online. And
Amazing.
then I started doing sound baths when your sister, Nikki,
Yeah,
publishing articles on the Ohm Store website about how to facilitate a sound bath.
yeah.
And bless Nikki, she is a good writer. I love it because she laid everything out so clearly. And I thought, I'm going to give this a try. So I tried it once, and the response was very surprising. People were so into it. So
Ah,
now there's a new age crystal store near me, and every month I do a kirtan during the summer months, and during December, I do a sound bath. And those are the best attended events. People want those sound baths because the summer months they want to relax, and December is that hot and heavy prep for the holiday times.
yeah.
They need the relaxation from, I suppose, shopping.
Mhm.
And so it's really blossomed. Like I said, I have a sound bath I'm doing Friday. People want more sound baths than anything else. And Frank, I've also found a new outlet which is starting to populate well, and that is area libraries are always looking for different presentations. They really love the idea of a sound bath because it can be an
Oh,
event for which people pre-register so you can control the number of people. Most libraries have a conference room or a classroom that can be
yeah.
separate from the rest of the library. People can bring their own mats, the lights can be darkened, and then I can present a 1 hour sound bath and lead people through it so that they can experience it for themselves. I also usually give them
Uh,
a handout so that they remember which pieces were used in the sound bath if I use any chants. And I also list a few books like these, such as what's this one? Oh, this one, in case they're very interested. There it is. Sound Healing for Beginners. If they're really interested in that, then
yeah.
I just point them toward Joshua Goldman. He's the son of Jonathan Goldman, and point them toward
Oh,
this. Yeah, yeah. Jonathan Goldman, his father, wrote the
yeah,
classic
yeah.
Healing Sounds, the Power of Harmonics.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that he had a son that wrote books about this topic. That's
Hey,
amazing.
speaking of books, and I mentioned this to you before you opened this
Please
up
share.
live. Just a little earlier this year in 2025, the author Anne Park released the Sound Practitioner's Book of Meditations. So this is actually a book of meditations laid out for you, the sound practitioner, to use when you're facilitating a sound bath. So yes, it's up to you to make the sounds and to facilitate the harmonics. But if you're wondering what kinds of things should I use to read aloud, what should I do to guide people at the end and to bring them out of their deep restfulness, this is a book to start with. So this is
Wow.
Anne Park, Anne, Anne Park.
That is amazing. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I write it. Okay, everyone live, by the way. I spelled the author's name for you so that you can find this book
Great.
in the,
And it's
and by the way, Dr. Sandra, of course, we have folks live. I haven't really acknowledged you all. Hello, it is wonderful to see you, Debbie and Dave and Tiffany and Isabel and everyone.
cool.
If you have questions or want Dr. Sandra to talk about something specifically, I have the comment section open in like a little corner of my computer. And so you can type your question in there and then I can relay it to Dr. Sandra. So I didn't invite you to do that, but please feel free to do so. Dr. Sandra,
Yes, sir.
okay, I was just struck by something because when often I see on Instagram or really all over the place, just like sessions about the business of being a sound healer. And this isn't something that you and I have ever talked about, but specifically, I just thought, and we didn't have a premeditated conversation about
Yeah.
this, the idea to do sound baths at libraries is absolutely incredible. Because that is a market, a market that seems so transactional.
No,
It's
it actually is because you can ask for a fee to cover your
yeah,
travel. And I usually ask for a flat fee of $50, and
yeah.
libraries have no problem with that.
It's absolutely incredible because for I am such like you when we talk to Lauren, I just love public libraries so dearly. Um, I just love spending time in library. I love everything about libraries. And I believe that when people who would like to do this as a profession, whether that be a full-time or a part-time and be compensated, it's not obvious that a place like a public library would be a good place to develop a relationship. It's really like a direct line to think of places like yoga studios, for example, as places that would love to have a sound healer. But a public library is just absolutely incredible. So thank you for sharing that. I think
Oh,
that's great. That's amazing.
let me share a couple more with you. There, at least where I live near the city of Rochester, New York, there is a large cancer center, the Pluta Cancer Center. They love sound baths because their patients who are in residence or patients who are visiting to have an appointment love to come in and drop in on a sound bath.
Ah,
It's also useful for the nurses, the doctors, and the medical fellows who work there because they're very high stressed. They can use it as
yeah.
well. Area hospitals can also have these, and very often it's offered either in a community room or in the hospital chapel. There's an art museum in Rochester, which is sort of quirky and not your standard art. It's more sort of independent stuff. It's called Artisan Works.
Okay.
And they actually have facilities for hosting a sound bath because it falls in line with their kind of, shall we say, hippie vibe. They really dig it. But it's
Yeah.
also fantastic resonance because the walls are all bricks with high open pipe
Uh,
ceilings, and the resonance is like being in a cathedral. It's brilliant.
oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
amazing. Do you it's kind of takes me down the path of like what else might be missing in terms of opportunities to be of service as we consider doing so, being of service with sound, with singing bowls, that is not obvious. I'm putting you on a spot. Does anything else come to mind? Because this is a really interesting track to follow.
Yeah, think about summer programs for children because, as you know, when school is out, many community centers and many schools offer summer programs. Offer to do a sound bath, especially for either young children in first, second grade, and of course you'd have, assistants there to help keep the kids, because generally they're going to have a midday nap. Why not make it a sound bath? Just like kids in
Oh,
first grade, they take their nap,
yes.
use the sound bath. Also, look for groups that are working with children who are on the autism spectrum
Yeah.
because they are very calmed by sound baths. This goes as well for children who are being treated for ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. These frequencies are very gentle. Now, you can't do anything loud or edgy, so you wouldn't use a harmonium. You probably would not use an electric guitar or anything like that. But
Yeah.
the gentle sounds of these low frequency instruments are perfect for that. And that way you're giving back to the community and you're helping the next generation.
Oh, that is brilliant. People are, I'll just say it back to you. So Chris said, what about wildlife sanctuaries? Tiffany said daycare nap times.
Mhm.
Isabel chiming in, any place that might have a piano would be a good place to perform
Sure.
a session. Yeah,
And
wonderful.
many libraries and community centers have a piano. I will say about the wildlife, when I first got my first singing bowls from the Ohm store, I took one out into the backyard, and we live right up against a pretty dense patch of woods. I I was chanting to my chickens because I wanted to see how they would react. And a white-tailed deer came out of the woods at the edge of the chicken coop and just stood there watching me like, "What are you doing?" Usually the white-tailed deer are very shy here because
Yeah.
there's hunting in this area. This doe stood there for quite a while and then after a while simply calmly walked away. But she was drawn, I
Mm.
think, to the sound of the bowls and the fact that I wasn't chanting loudly, and so it was almost a murmur. Yes, I
Oh,
think that wildlife sanctuaries would definitely benefit that from that. Uh, Zoos might find you to
oh,
be a really interesting addition. Certainly around the gorillas, baboons, the larger apes, I think they would respond very positively. Just if you have a really expensive striker like this, do not put it near the cage. It's a toy for them.
oh my gosh. How which implements and wands have you been experimenting with most lately? I see you've got the double-sided half dragonfly, half ohm store kind of idea there.
The very second you listed this as being available on the Ohm store, I bought this rascal. And it's so valuable because you have the hard wrapped leather end for the large strike. I'll just use my Saturn bowl. And then for a softer sound, which is absolutely perfect for a sound bath, I have this cloth, more felted end, which is muffled.
Uh,
And so while the frequencies are the same pitch, there are different intensities. So this gives me a very good, consistent tone when I use the hard end around a bowl, but this is what I use actually most often in a sound bath because I want the softer sounds to meld as I combine. And it's like putting ingredients into a blender and then turning it onto puree. Everything begins to mix together, and I have a wash of sound like a watercolor.
yeah. Would you, okay, so this that kind of like brought me to an idea that I would love to explore with you. And so, as someone who has been trained in vocals, trained in other more traditionally tuned musical instruments. I'm curious how you look at singing bowls or gongs. And specifically, something that I've become present to is that singing bowls are very different because your singing bowl will be different than my singing bowl. And so oftentimes I will be in conversation with people and they will be insistent, like I have to tell me exactly how I get the bowl to do what I'm wanting it to do. I saw something online or I saw something on Instagram and I want my bowl to behave a certain way. I want it to play like this around the rim, or I want to be able to do it like this. And so I was wondering, maybe you can just talk about the distinction between instruments like singing bowls and gongs versus instruments like pianos and guitars, and how we can really like think about them and approach them and allow them to do what they're made to do.
Sure. First of all, a guitar and a piano are essentially the same instrument. They're plucked. They have sort of strings which are plucked. The piano strings are hammered, but they're still striking a string. The guitar strings are plucked. Like this ukulele here, nothing happens unless I pluck a string. I can gently strike it like this, and it's very soothing. But still, there's that idea of a harder impact, ting, ting, ting. With the bowls, when I strike it with a soft mallet, and you can get felt wrapped mallets, they don't have to be loose like this, but I really love this one. Because it's bowl shaped, the frequencies change, and you can think of it as sort of mixing something in the kitchen. They change, and the bell shape of the bowl is going to change those frequencies as they sound. There's the fundamental, which is the initial pitch of the bowl, and the same thing with a gong, the fundamental. This one is tuned to F sharp,
Hmm.
but because they have bowl-shaped edges, and the gong itself is a really large bowl with very flat edges, but they're still turned up,
Hmm.
it changes the frequency so that you hear more of what are called overtones. People who tune pianos, or people who tune guitars, they know that you can tune a key to, let's say, middle C. And then if you use yeah, I want to say pitchfork, fork to do the pitch.
Tuning
Yeah,
fork.
haha, I'm the devil. Yeah. So you might tune it
Oh.
to this fork, or you might tune to this. But besides the fundamental, there are also higher overtones.
Oh.
And the gong amplifies that. So do the bowls, not as obviously because they're smaller. The larger the gong, the more overtones you'll hear. And from larger gongs, you can get amazing effects such as the waves washing in on an ocean, or the sound almost of a choir of mixed voices. It's pretty astounding what you can do. This is actually a mid-sized gong. This is very average, 28 inches. This is a Jupiter gong made by Paiste, sold by Gongs Unlimited. And these tuning forks, by the way, are a set of 9 tuning forks which are used for biofield tuning, because I really love the work of Eileen McCusick. She wrote Tuning the Human Biofield. And this is a form of sound healing itself, which I use sometimes in a sound bath. As I'm playing, I'll bring out one of these tuning forks, hit the edge of this hockey puck, which is what it is, and then I'll hold it right next to the ears, especially if I'm doing a 1 or 2 person sound bath, because these specific frequencies that the forks are tuned to all have different effects on the human body. Now, the gong, ideally, if I were doing a sound healing, I would turn the gong around so that the flanged end would face you. But right now it's facing the wall because this is the pretty part.
Yeah, yeah. Dr. Sandra, people don't often turn the gongs. Why is that?
I think it's because when you turn it around and you have the flanged edge facing, you get more sound intensity.
I
And
see.
the idea in a sound bath is to calm and relax.
Yeah.
Usually for a one-on-one person sound healing, it's easier to turn it around. For a general sound bath in which you have several people or a lot of people, let the front part face. And it's a good idea to have 2 mallets when you're playing the gong, soft mallets, because that way you can have 2 tones going at the same time. Many people don't realize that while the center of the gong is the tuning of the gong, the sweet spot is the lower left portion. And there are different pitches along the edges where it curves over, and then right along the edge where the center meets the border. So this is a multi-tonal instrument, much more so than a standard drum or a standard bell. And it simply is a little bit of a, what do you want to call it? An extension of what the sound singing bowls do.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so I want to get into a bit of a show and tell because you've so nicely presented yourself amidst so many interesting objects. Before we do that, would you just share, so you started getting singing bowls in like 2017, 2018, sometime around then. What has been your general experience with using singing bowls before we get into like what are all of these other things and can you share them with us?
Well, the very first one that I got was, I hate to say it, not from the Ohm store because I didn't know about you guys then. It was just a singing bowl that I picked up from a local New Age store. And it was this one. It has 5 Buddhas carved in the bottom, has Om on the bottom. And I got it because a friend of mine had loaned me her singing bowl, and I began to see, wow, this takes me to a new place. And I was
Hmm.
in my yoga 200-hour training at the time. So, of course, I was studying meditation and pranayama, which is the breathing for meditation. And I found that this made such a difference. But being a musician by training, I wanted to dive deeper. So I wanted to have different pitches to work with.
Yeah.
Now, when I first began getting the bowls, I would get the bowls not knowing what pitches they were. So it was, what do you want to say, kind of like it was a gamble, you
Yeah.
know. Luckily, in the bowls that I have, none of which I bought because of their pitches, I bought because A, I could afford them, and B, they looked nice. Yeah, real spiritual concern there, huh? I've managed to make combinations like these 5 bowls. So a 5 note minor scale. Some of these other bowls are complementary harmonies together. Some don't go well together, so I have to know which ones tonally combine in a pleasant way and
Yeah.
which ones are a very dissonant combination.
Yeah.
There's even one bowl which is specifically because it matches the flute. Whoop, I get. Oh, for some reason it's not sounding great. All right, sometimes dust gets in the. But anyway, this bowl matches the top note of this flute, so I'll
Okay.
often use it when I'm using this wooden flute in a situation.
Do
Wooden
you have
flutes, wooden flutes
yeah,
are very temperamental.
yeah, yeah, that's okay. Do you have like a getting to know you process that you do with the bowls?
Oh, yeah. First of all, when it arrives, especially if it arrives in cold weather, I need to make sure that it warms up to the ambient temperature of the room because I have to know what it's going to be like at a normal room temperature. And then I have to figure out which striker the bowl will accept because the striker that comes with the bowl is not necessarily the one that the bowl likes the best. Boy, have I found that out. So this is not even 1/5 of the number of strikers I have. But some bowls like different strikers, and I have one striker which most of these bowls seems to respond to very well. Um, it's just kind of interesting because some bowls will sound better, and by sounding I mean once I activate the bowl and I begin to rub the edge, some bowls will immediately give up a very beautiful vibration, and others just don't seem to want to do that at all. So I'll try different strikers, some with like the wrapped leather, others the suede. Some I'll try a pure wooden striker with no leather wrapping, and others seem to do better just with the soft mallet, maybe not even being rubbed. Most of the bowls here are from the Ohm store. I have maybe just 2 that are not. So fortunately, the bowls that you sell do seem to respond well to the strikers that they come with, but I have had a couple in the early days that I've had to
Yeah.
shift around a bit.
Yeah, that's it's something that I've often get and sometimes it seems obvious to me that a bowl is not going to do something that I want it to do. Like for example, if I want to get a 14-inch diameter bowl to play 300 hertz overtones when I play it around the rim, usually it's an exercise in futility. And so this is often, but it's often things, that well-meaning people who are new to singing bowls have a desire that their bowl do a specific thing
Yeah.
that is really like, I don't want to say impossible, but not probable by the standards of physics, which is a large determinant, almost the sole
Oh
determinant
yeah.
of the frequencies that a singing bowl is going to play. It's like the weight, the wall size, the wall height, the shape of the bowl, including the small imperfections that we have. That essentially determines the capability of the bowl in terms of producing a wide range of frequencies. But I like what you said there, and I just wanted to echo it back a little. I have found that because of what we see on the internet, the most frequently expressed desire is to play the bowl around the rim and have the bowl played around the rim, being done in just like a really excellent tone that is pristine. And I find more often than not that I can elicit the most interesting or soothing tones from a bowl by striking it on its side. And
Yeah.
so it's a little bit, it flies in the face of I think what we have been shown most frequently about how these bowls are used. And so often when we're presented with these questions, the first question that I ask, and really just a way to make people think, is why does the bowl have to play in the way that you're suggesting it has to play? Meaning the bowl has a specific tune that it has to offer. And so wouldn't our role be to find the way that the bowl can express its song best rather than forcing it to be something? And I should also say, because we're chatting with everyone here, we have a lifetime guarantee. So this doesn't have to be like a financial decision that you make about like, well, I paid for this bowl and so it has to be this way. We take that off the table at the Ohm store because all you have to do is love your bowl. And if you don't love your bowl, you don't really need to give us a reason, why you want to get a different one or get a return. But the question remains, which is, why do you think a bowl should do a certain thing? And it's one
Well,
thing if it's like, we're saying this is an F bowl and then we send you a C. It's like, well, of course, that's not correct.
well, it's interesting the what you talk about, about the bowls sometimes do things other than what we expect them to do. Is that not the philosophy in raising a child? You may want your child to grow up and take over the family business, but what if that child actually has more of a draw towards, say, becoming a minister or becoming a dancer or becoming, a ski instructor? So I think of these bowls, even though, yes, I know that they are made of metal. I think of them as having personalities. And I think people who own cars or boats or things like that, they do the same thing.
Yeah.
These things of metal have moving molecules and atoms just like our own bodies, and so they have their own personalities. For instance, this flute, before today's presentation, it was playing just fine. I picked it up to
Aha.
try to play it for you, and it decided not to play.
A
Okay,
trickster.
so yeah, it's not in the mood to play. I get that. Sometimes this harmonium gets a little sticky from humidity. I get it, old girl, it's all right. So I just have to play with the bowls and I adapt. So I'm constantly like a dancer. I'm weaving and changing my direction. And that's why, if for my sound healing, since the last time that we did one of these
Yeah.
interviews, I've added a couple of things like a ukulele, some chimes, an Irish boran, which is the small Irish drum. Um, Again, a lot of these are more for kirtan than sound
Yeah.
healing, but I'm always trying to look and see what direction can I take my sound healing
Mm.
so that I'm able to offer something that might perk up a person, something that might hook into where they are.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with these bowls. How can I hook into where that bowl is? Why should I force it to meet my expectations? I need to find out what its expectations are and then see how I can adapt that to my work.
What is, aside from the fact that we asked you to, what's got you interested in being a teacher for sound school? Like why do you choose to spend your time doing that when you have so many amazing things going on?
Well, for 42 years, I've been teaching voice. Yeah, yeah. And I discovered that as much as I love performing, and I'd say I was fairly good at it, that I loved teaching more because performing is, it has a short shelf life. A singer can only sing for so many years. But teaching means that what you have learned goes into the next generation. They will teach it to the next generation. And so the knowledge is never lost. And that knowledge will be applied so that the performing is never lost. The performing is what reaches out to a person in the audience and makes them say, hey, I'd like to learn to sing like that, or hey, I'd like to learn to play that instrument. And then they will search out a teacher. It's the teaching that keeps the culture alive. The performing is merely the tip of the iceberg. The rest of the iceberg is the teaching. And I love that teaching because, as I mentioned before, I'm a gardener. I love planting seeds. I love seeing what grows and then enjoying the harvest. And the teaching in the sound school, I'm able to put that work in and then see the harvest of those 100 people go out like flowers from a field of flowers, going out and spreading seeds into other fields that I may never see or know about.
Oh, what is your, what would you say is your philosophy on sound healing? And what I mean by that is your friend's son is a little bit skeptical
Mhm.
about what's possible. How would you describe your philosophy to someone who is trying to understand, okay, what's going on? Like what is actually happening for someone
Yeah.
when they are surrounded by singing bowls, potential voice, other musical instruments, and entering into an agreement with a facilitator to be there with them for 30 to 120 minutes. Like what do you think is going on there?
Well, the first thing I do before I even begin to talk about a philosophy is once again state that I do everything I can to leave the ego out of it. And coming from a background of being a vocal soloist, that's a pretty egotistical thing because you're having to get up there on stage and basically sell whatever character or song you're singing. So
Yeah.
it's a very much an ego-based musical performance. But sound healing is just the opposite. You literally need to disappear into the offering of the sound bath because you must always remember that the people are not there because of you. They are there because they are hoping to receive relaxation, relief, rest, restoration. They need all of these things. You are merely, if I may use a hollow jug of clay, and the water that is within you is the knowledge that you have of sound healing and then the ability to play the bowls. You pour out that water, hopefully onto a person's soul so that they can find what they're looking for. They're not there to celebrate the jug, they're there to receive the water because that's what's going to revive them so that they can go on and live hopefully a higher elevated life, at least in quality, if not in quantity.
Wow. So so your job isn't to necessarily facilitate things, but more, if I'm interpreting this, to create openings.
Really, it is. It truly is. Again, it all goes, I hate to use the same thing again, but it's like gardening. Somebody's got to get in there with a spade and dig up the ground so the seeds don't have to fight their way through rock hard soil. I'm just digging up the ground. I'm softening the ground so that maybe they can grow.
Oh my gosh. And I just want to point out, Dr. Sandra, that Heike and several other people have said that they're learning some really cool things. And someone even put a session on hold that they were about to go to because they were loving the conversation that you were having so much. So amazing. Thank you. Okay. So there's so many interesting goodies around. So I can ask you, I have like a million other things I want to ask you, but because you have presented me with no other option but to dig into a show and tell here, would you please share with us? I would
Sure.
like you to allow your intuition or desire to guide us. Like, what can we talk about here that you have in front of you? Because many of these items are things that people might not be familiar with.
Okay, most of you are going to be familiar with the singing bowls because you already know about Frank and the Ohm store. So you'll know that they're all different pitches and they can be combined in many ways by striking. The things that I've added to this, for kirtan, principally, I use a harmonium. I'll tilt this up so that you can see. A
Yes.
harmonium, and this is the smallest one you can get, it's 2.5 octaves, is basically a mechanical pump organ. So I pump this with my left hand and play with my right hand. This is used for leading chants like Om Namo and that's very traditional in Indian music. If you have simpler things in which you could get by with just a drone, this is called a tanpura. And this is a modern adaptation of a very ancient Indian instrument. You have your root note, this is a C, then the two center notes are C an octave above, and the top note is a G. It's not meant to be played with a fret. My left hand is just holding the box up. So I can use this as a drone while I'm doing something like Om Bhur Svaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. And you get that sort of carnactic sound of classical Indian music, but this
Yeah.
adds a dimension of almost antiquity to the sound.
That instrument is
It
fascinating. Can
really
you
is.
share like what is giving it the unique like characteristic of sound? Um,
The box is hollow, so it's about 2.5 feet long. It's made of this is made of a teak wood. It's hollow with a small sound bowl, sound opening, and then I'm able to tune this up here, so it can be tuned to anything, B flat,
okay.
C, whatever you want. And then it's simply you have three notes that are playing your root, and then you have a fifth. So all of those who know what I'm talking about, you probably took music theory. And this can be played, if I'm playing something here on the harmonium in C or A minor, somebody else can be playing this. And then I have the start of a kirtan band. Yes. So it just adds a depth, but I have had a couple of people in the live kirtans that I do monthly go out and actually buy their own tanpura because they say it's very meditative to lean this up against the heart, play it, and chant in their own homes. They feel the vibrations of the tanpura coming in through the
Mm,
sternum, and the sound is very gentle on the ear. So it doesn't make it's not edgy as if it were, say, a more harsh guitar, like a six
yeah,
string.
that is awesome.
And then it's always a good idea to have a light piece of percussion. This is a cajon, so this is a drum that's divided into two parts so that you get low, oh, yeah, here we go. Two different pitches, low and high. It's very portable. It can be done in any way. This unusual thing that I pulled out earlier, this is a Nigerian udu drum. It is a clay jar, and it has a huge opening on the side, a huge opening at the top. You can actually do this, you can change the pitch with your hands. So here is a flat palm. It almost sounds like water bubble, bloop, bloop.
Yeah.
But if I cup my hand, I get,
Oh,
and I can do the same thing on the top. And then if I use my ring, I can actually give myself more percussion.
whoa. So
So a lot of fun.
Dr. Sandra, not to interrupt your amazing flow, but Alma would like to know where these in Alma, which one? Where can we purchase them?
All right. The tanpura and the harmonium come from Old Delhi Music, OldDelhi music.com. They're located in Illinois, and a guy named Nick runs that. It's a small company. He imports these directly from India, and when they arrive at his shop, he then tunes them according to what the customer wants. This
Oh,
is tuned to Western tuning. He'll also tune a harmonium to Indian tuning, depending on which ragas you want to work with.
yes. Okay.
Okay. This is a drum from Meinl Music, Meinl. That can be ordered directly from Meinl online. And then this Udu drum I bought from a fairly large online concern named after the jungle down in Brazil.
Ah, I think I've heard of them.
Yeah, it's possible it may have come across your path. All but two of the bowls, of course, came from the Ohm store. This is a simple set of chimes, which I use very sparingly in sound baths, but
Oh,
I do use it only in sound baths because it helps me to transition from one section of the sound bath to the other. For instance, I usually always start a sound bath with tingsha. These are Tibetan cymbals matched together on a strap. because that very crisp sound helps to cut through the air and it helps to define the beginning. I also use it
Mm.
at the end. These I'll use to separate sections of a sound bath. And then the boran, I would never use it in a sound bath, but I would in kirtan because this is a traditional Irish drum. You hold it by threading your hand back there. You can play it, or you can dull the sound and get. So you can actually
Ah,
change the timbre.
yeah.
It's a very militaristic type of drum, but it's also used in jigs and reels. And then the ukulele is my newest addition. This I got because I wanted something that was a very soft, gentle string sound
Uh,
because I'm incorporating more Spanish language mantras into my sound work.
oh,
So
interesting.
I needed something that would be used for that style of music, and so obviously a guitar, but I didn't want to bring in the loudness or bigness of a guitar, so the softness of a ukulele is very ideal.
Uh,
Can be
why the incorporation of more Spanish language mantras? Just serving Spanish speakers or other reasons?
Well, the traditional mantras are those which are in Sanskrit. And then
Yeah.
if you branch out a little bit, those that are in Punjabi that are used in Kundalini and by the Sikhs. And then there are plenty which are in English. But the more that I've been able to research, I felt that we were not doing good service to good chants and mantras that were in other languages that are very accessible. Spanish
Ah,
is extremely accessible because so many people have taken Spanish and there's a great beauty to the language. So I've
yeah.
been incorporating that. Also, some mantras in Hebrew. There's one I'm working on currently in Arabic. I used one last month that was actually in Norwegian.
Do you remember these off the top of your head? Or are there any you can share in Spanish, Arabic, Norwegian to put you on the spot?
Yeah, the Norwegian one was very simple. It was Jeg elsker deg, min venn,
Mm.
and it means I love you, my friend. So it went something like Jeg elsker deg, jeg elsker deg, min venn. A very simple sentence, but it just shows that there's a connection now here with another culture, another language, and yet we can still receive something in our hearts from it. So we don't have to limit ourselves just to the traditional Sanskrit or to whatever language we were born speaking. So I try to keep pushing those doors wider and wider.
Ah, Isabel speaks French and is wondering, is there any chanting that you've done in French?
There isn't, but I'm very comfortable with the French language. So Isabella, I am going to add some in. I'm going to do some research and do that. And then perhaps in one of the town halls that we do in Sound School 2.0,
Yeah.
I can share that with you and maybe you could share with me.
Oh, I would love that. Would you tell that to people? So we have, I think, people who may join. I know people who have been with us in Ohm Store Sound School version run. I don't have a formal name in our first group. And so we've got people who are with us now, people who potentially will be with us. And so all sorts of things. Tell us this. We have some new developments for
Ah,
people who are Sandra, of course, was with us in our first cohort,
yeah.
Alma, many more. What are you going to be adding to your participation in Sound School when we begin in April?
Right. In Sound School 1, I had my 3 videos, but what I'm going to be adding for Sound School 2, besides those videos, will stay. I'm going to be producing another video which will basically be teaching you how to facilitate using your voice, how to use good vocal support. I think it would be a good video for Ben to watch because I think it might help him with his shyness about
Oh,
using voice because I understand that. I've been there myself. And the other thing I'm going to be adding will be on Wednesday nights from 9 p.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. Eastern. I'll be opening this space up for live town hall. Now, I didn't do any live town halls during Sound School 1, but I will be doing that this time during the run of the school. So Lauren and Frank will be setting up those and they'll be getting the information out to you. So I'll be able to speak with all of you, just like I'm speaking with Frank here, and take questions and you'll share with me. I'll learn from you too.
That's right. So not only will you get access to Dr. Sandra in a direct way, which is what many people requested, but also we did not, admittedly, I don't know what to say, but I'll just say it plainly. I go to sleep at like 8:30 p.m. Central Time. And so I have always recognized that that not everyone is like me. And many people have more adult schedules and prefer like to be more active in learning and participating in things past 8:30 p.m. However, because of my own personal limitations, we have offered things in a live fashion, as you know, typically between the hours of 10 a.m. To 4 p.m. Central Time. And so not only will you be able to interact directly with Dr. Sandra, but for those of you who I believe are numerous, who prefer or are just able to participate in things after work hours or later in the evening, now you will have a resource to be interactive with each week, and that is going to be with Dr. Sandra. Yes, Isabel, and
I'm
many,
looking
yes,
forward to
many
that.
people are looking forward to. We've been offering like elementary school hours when we needed a little bit more night school hours, and so we have that now with Dr. Sandra.
And it's okay, you can drink wine during my town hall.
I love it. Yes, you can drink wine. And so what do you just to clarify, anything is available during town hall. Is that right,
Oh
Dr.
yeah,
Sandra? Meaning
yeah,
people can come to you with questions, they can come with requests for, oh, can you show me, how you were doing the drone
of
on the
course.
singing bowl?
Yeah, I hope that it will not just be me running my mouth the whole time. I hope that you will also want to share with me what you're doing. If you want to share what you've worked up and maybe share with everyone else, I'll be glad to always have books available. I expect to have this set up for you each Wednesday for town hall so that if there's something you want me to demonstrate or show you how I work a certain instrument, I'm happy to do that.
Hmm. Will you? I'm curious, Dr. Sandra. This is a question that I often think about, but I would love your perspective on it. Um, how does someone know if sound school is right for them? Put more simply, who should consider sound school?
They'll know if they have what is commonly termed a servant heart, if they have a heart that wants to help others. Because you don't get into sound school just because it's interesting and you want to do it for yourself because, yay, well, that's first fun. It gets boring pretty quickly. You want it to be something you can share with other people so it becomes what is called a seva. And a seva is a Sanskrit word meaning a selfless service, a giving. So you want it to always be a giving. Yes, of course, people get paid for doing sound baths, and that's absolutely fine. The laborer is worthy of their hire, right?
Yeah.
But the work that it takes to become a sound practitioner, that's because you ultimately want to share it with others.
Oh, my goodness. That is amazing. And what can people expect to learn in sound school? Even though we kind of covered this in the beginning, and of
Oh.
course, I talk about it ad nauseum, but just from your perspective, what can people expect to? So once they've kind of said yes to a few things, what should their expectations look like?
Well, you're going to put in quite a good bit of time learning about the science of sound. And if the word science scares you, it shouldn't, because Jonathan makes it really, really interesting. So you'll actually be learning about the true power of sound, about things that I mentioned before, like fundamentals and overtones and binaural beats, things which may sound very foreign right now, but they will make sense very, very quickly. And you'll be able to see things in a different perspective when you work with your bowls and sound instruments. Then, once you learn about that aspect of it, you start learning how to actually put together your own sound school sections. I would liken it to if I were teaching you how to be a race car driver, I would not hand you the keys and say, get out on the track. I would say, let's open up the hood and look at the engine. Jonathan teaches you what is under the hood. He teaches you how the motor works. And then the rest of us help him in teaching you how to take that out on the track so that you can then become a functional sound healer. You'll know what to do with all of this stuff or most of this stuff. You'll also develop a hunger for learning more, and you'll start getting books like, for instance, the books by Thomas Ashley Farrand of different mantras, or the books by Jonathan Goldman on healing sounds. You'll want to learn more because you'll want to take that deep dive on your own as well.
Oh, amazing. Dr. Sandra. Wow. What an incredible addition that we have. The evening town halls with Dr. Sandra, wine allowed, maybe encouraged. I can't say, but definitely allowed. Dr. Sandra, do you have any parting words to share or parting things aside from, enrollment starts March 28th for Sound School, which begins on April 15th. What parting words would you share with everyone, or anything that you're feeling really passionate about? Like, definitely this book out of all of the books that I mentioned today is the one for you, and you should go buy it right now from
Yeah.
the South
Sound
American
practitioners,
place.
yeah. Well, the first thing I'd say, Frank, is why are you opening sound school on tax day, for heaven's sake? You're loony.
People need a new beginning that day.
Yeah, I guess so. A healing.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it's true. No, I would just say be open to everything. If you look at a book like, for instance, the Sound Practitioner's Book of Meditations, look in the back. Every book's going to have a bibliography of sources that they use. Look in there and see if there are titles or authors who interest you. Check mark them, and then see if you can find maybe a used copy of that book, or better yet, go to your local library. Many local libraries now, you can request that they get a book for you from one of their branches if they don't have it, and they'll get it for you. In the county where I live, they don't even charge a fee for that, so I use that all the time. And
Amazing.
start noodling around, picking around, getting ideas. Also, watch videos, listen to videos online of other people who do sound baths. Watch Jonathan, watch Ben, and then dig around, start watching other people. Is there a particular mantra you want to learn? Well, see if you can find it on YouTube, and then listen to several versions of it and see if there's one that maybe you could make your own. So always be, I hate to say it again, a gardener. You're always harvesting, you're always
Yes.
picking, you're also weeding out things you don't need, so that eventually you will have your path and your perfect garden, but you'll continually be refreshing your knowledge, putting in fresh seeds. That's why you have to have that servant heart. It's not for your glory, it's because you know that the next people, the next generation need it, and you've got to teach as long as you've got the breath to teach.
Oh, amazing, Dr. Sandra. Okay, last thing. I put your website in the comments here, so people can actually go and visit your website. Is there anywhere else that you would be keen for people to be learning from you or tracking what you're up to?
Um, Really just SBS Yoga Works and SBS Vocal Works, mostly SBS Yoga Works.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think those would be all right. And then always, if you're not already subscribed, to get all the different releases from the Ohm Store, the different articles written by Frank and releases by Nikki, you really need to be getting those, because as I mentioned earlier, it was one of those articles by Frank's sister that got me into doing this. So you never know what's going to spark for you.
That's incredible. You never know where an opening will come from.
That's right.
Well, Dr. Sandra, thank you. I mean, we will see much more of you beginning on April 15th. And if we can support those of you that are listening in any way, or facilitate a connection or question that you have for Dr. Sandra,
Yeah.
you know how to find us. You can message us on Facebook. You can email us at hello@theomstore.co. You can get on Dr. Sandra's website at sbsyogaworks with an x.com. We are here for you. And Heike
Yeah.
and Dave and Ellie and everyone that's been here with us live, thank you so much. And anyone that's watching a recording of this, we're here for you. You can
Yes.
find us, and we would love to support you. Okay,
Yes.
everyone live on Facebook, thank you so much. We will see you very soon. Thanks, Dr. Sandra.
Sounds cool.
Sounds cool. All right.